Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the big shift on Earth. Yes. Right. So I just wanted to pop in and do a quick stream live here now in this moment to update you for those who have been following along on my page about the current happenings on the planet. And as you can tell, there is a smile on my face. So this is positive news that we are stepping into what is happening, which might be kind of rare to be receiving on the planet right now. And I just wish to preface all of this by saying for anyone who has lost a loved one during this time, know that your heart is being held in the utmost of grace, and that this message in no way is meant to disregard the pain that you're experiencing now. And at the same time, we must also speak to what is to come this week. Now, these messages have been confirmed by numerous intelligence agents. This has been confirmed not only by intelligence agents who are, the whistleblowers of our time. I have also now received this message from previous clients who have family members who are involved in the Navy who are also speaking this message through. It has also come through multiple of my friends who are channels from their guides as well, not knowing anything that I've been sharing on the dates and times. So I am at a 99% feeling tone of what is about to be shared in this video. Now, I've spoken about on my wall April 1st through April 10th being a time of great change and a time that many people who are operating online might want to be prepared for the internet to be different or not available. So ultimately, the latest update is around 3 days that there'll be no internet, and during that time, there are going to be mass arrests. Mass arrests amounting to the number of 500,000 people who will be arrested during these 3 days of total blackout. And whilst I don't feel that that blackout is going to be like an internet blackout, it's more, or not internet, electricity blackout. So like our electricity grid is still going to be functioning. It will be an internet blackout, potentially a telephone blackout as well for those 3 days. And people will be advised through emergency broadcast to stay at home because these arrests are going to be taking place. And then after those 3 days, things are going to come back online, literally back online. And we're going to go into a period of around 7 to 8 days of disclosure, where continuously throughout the day, we'll call it, I like to call it a broadcast, like a documentary, an 8-hour long documentary that is going to just walk people through what has been happening on planet Earth, what has been going down, why we're in this massive reset, and how we have effectively taken our power back to have a massive disclosure to the people. Now, what of all the things that a lot of us know is going to be disclosed? That is still up in the air. I feel that we're going to go about it in a way that creates the least amount of trauma, yet also reveals the most amount of truth in order so that we'll just call them the overlords, so that the overlords that have had a dark black magic control over this planet cannot come back and just say, oh no, those are just conspiracy theorists, don't listen to them, keep plugging into this fear system, right? So the disclosure must take place now in order for that to not happen. So it's going to be a massive disclosure. Now, what's going to be disclosed? I would imagine that it's going to be enough so that people realize, but not so much that people go into a total breakdown and, trauma-induced experience where they completely lose control, which will happen for some. There will be people who will not be able to handle the information that comes through. And in those cases, it's now important for those of us who have been fluent in this information, in this disclosure for years now, because many of us have been on the inside being called conspiracy theorists by our family and our friends and everyone else on social media because we spread this information. It's going to be important for those of us who have gone through the process of unwinding the pain of, waking up and realizing that people have been controlled. All the freedom that they believed they had was not actually true. And that their money, that they were, people worked so hard to pay taxes. Like they worked so freaking hard to make ends meet. And to find out that their hard earned money has been going towards things like pedophilia and, massive systems of control and domination and killing and death and enslaving, like when they realize that their money has been going towards that, that's going to create a lot of shifts inside of them. And we are going to need to be able to be there to hold space, to help people unwind and to heal through this process. Which is why I feel that so many of us have gone through this process early, gone through the whole awakening and the disclosure and, really made our amends with it and found forgiveness for what has been so that we can be there for those that are going to be awakening now on a massive, we're talking everyone plugged in is going to be waking up to this truth now. So during these 3 days, when the emergency broadcasts are going through, there are going to be mass arrests around the numbers of 500,000 people. And these arrests are already being prepared for. If you have been following it all, what's happening in the United States is actually leading this mission. And the United States, Trump, about a week or a week and a half ago, my timing in my brain of when I read this, he enacted certain wartime scenarios that allowed for the US to put military in parts of the world where there's around 30,000 troops right now in Europe that the US have sent out, as well as other parts of the world. And those troops are actually there to go about doing these mass arrests over the course of 3 days. Now, everyone is going to be encouraged to stay home during that time because, like, especially if you're living somewhere where a lot of these people that are going to be arrested are living cities, but not only cities, because a lot of them have gone underground. And, the military, these Navy SEALs, they are, and I have just chills over my whole body right now. That is just, for me, confirmation of everything that's coming through. These incredible Navy SEALs, they know how to go into underground bunkers and to find people and to do these mass arrests. So this is going to be happening, and it's going to be very important for people to stay home, right? To stay in their house and to be focused on the timeline that we want to be seeing emerge now, which is freedom and sovereignty for all of humanity and breaking free, like just see the chains, like just break free from people's auric bodies and stay close to your loved ones, because if you are in areas where these mass arrests are going to be taking place, and we really don't know everywhere that these beings have been in hiding, it could be somewhere that we would have never expected, like, the middle of nowhere where you would think, oh, everything's just, this is the type of places that these people will be in hiding as well. So staying in for those 3 days while these mass arrests happen so that we don't get involved in any way if there is any type of retaliation that wants to happen. A lot of these people have been preparing for this, as we have seen. What was the last number? I want to say around 130,000. We've seen a massive already indictments happening and a lot of CEOs stepping down. These people know that this is coming, right? This timeline has been happening, and we can say whatever we want about how things transpire, but this is something that has been written in the story of this species for the last 2020 years. And we knew this day was coming. The darkness knew this day was coming. They tried to prolong it as much as possible with, killing a lot of the people who were awake to this earlier, like JFK, and a lot of the celebrities who woke up to it and who wanted to disseminate the truth, like Prince. And, these people all were killed. And that was how they delayed it. This information was also supposed to come out in September 11th of 2001, was it? 2001? Yeah. When 9/11 happened, that was another time when this information was meant to be released. And obviously this terrorist attack distracted us from that, right? So there has been a prolonging of this period of time, and now everyone is aware, all sides, the Alliance and the dark forces, we'll call them the overlords, everyone knows that there can be no more. Their timeline has ended, and these arrests are happening, which is why we've seen people like, Prince Harry of the royal family step down, close all ties, and release all affiliations with the royal family, because I believe that in these families there are awakened ones. There are ones who recognize what's happening and who do not want to be a part of it. And, him and his wife said, no, we're not going to be a part of it. And I've actually been tuning into some feeds where, because she is also an actress, which we're going to see a lot of Hollywood people, Illuminati, right, coming through and either dying of the coronavirus or standing trial. And people are going to be given an option. You can either have a suicide, die of the coronavirus. You can be given an out, which the out is death, or you can stand trial and have your entire reputation tarnished, right? That being said, this document that's going to be released, and it's really going to be a broadcast, like a documentary. It's an 8-hour broadcast. It's going to be streaming 3 times a day. So people will not have any other option other than to watch it. It's going to reveal what's been happening. So in that, I see kind of Harry and his wife actually being people that can be spokespersons for what's been happening in Hollywood and in, the royal family and in other places. And I believe it was the King of France or the King of Spain, I think France, who recently turned down his entire family inheritance, right? So there are people in these families that are awakened ones and that are aware and that are pulling themselves out as well. And, Prince Harry and his wife actually just left Canada and came to the US because the US is on a very expanded and accelerating and rapid timeline right now that is going to create massive change in this world. And here goes the chills again. Something that I've personally really had a lot of resistance around is as having been born in the United States in this life. I was really, really resistant to it for so long when I was in my stages of not remembering. And now I recognize why so many of us have been born into the United States in this timeline, because this country is so deeply enmeshed in the dark forces that, the biggest puppet for it, that it had to be the nation that first broke free to then spread it and let it disseminate out. And so many of us are here so that we could be anchoring this love and this light and this new earth timeline here so that that could take place. And ultimately, right now, we're entering into this, I want to say this in a way that doesn't allow for any pre-established associations with anything to come in, because that can come in and can kind of resist then the language that's happening. That being said, we're in biblical times right now. The story of what is happening was really a premonition in the original Gnostic texts that have been changed and altered and molded, and the Bible that is on the market today is not necessarily the purity. That being said, a lot of the symbolic messages are in there, and we are in the revelation, we are in the biblical times of this great shift that happens. And we're seeing it with the 3 days of darkness, the 3 days of staying inside your homes, the 3 days of reset. And the internet has to go down, because right now, even as we stream on this, we're being surveilled. We are being watched by these overlords, by this faction that has had control. They're everywhere. And So the internet has to come down so that those tentacles can be pulled out from the system as well, right? It's like this giant, you can really look at it like this giant dark octopus that has had its tentacles wrapped into all these different sections of existence, and it's one by one being pulled out, right? So that we can take a collective big breath and really start to anchor what is true and real. So whatever goes down this week between now and the 10th, between Easter, the resurrection, right? This is literally in alignment with so many energetic signatures. It's also because holidays, holy days, they hold very specific energetic frequencies and codes and alignments, which is why they've become holy days. And on these days, we're actually pulling back, because the dark overlords have been using these days for their dark agendas to fuel that energy towards them. So we're actually pulling back the power. And through April and May, there are several very powerful alignments that happen that have been used for darkness. And these shifts must happen during this time because of these energetic alignments. Now, not even speaking to the fact of, if we look at the sidereal astrology, which is where the planets actually are in alignment right now, not the fallen tropical system. Now, a lot of you might find yourself being triggered, but you're going to have to pull out of the tropical Western system now, because that is the dark overlord system that keeps people out of alignment with what's actually happening. So if you look at the tropical fallen system, it would show that these planets are actually in Capricorn already, and we're already in the rebuilding. We're already past the disclosure. But that's not true. That's just what that energy wanted the majority of people to believe. When we look at the sidereal astrology, we see that Saturn, or not Saturn, excuse me, Jupiter, and maybe I think that Facebook actually allows for screen share now on these live calls. So let me see if I can just Chrome tab for Astro chart. Yeah. Okay, cool. So hopefully you can all see this. So this is the sidereal. This is where the planets are actually at in relationship to the Earth right now. And we see Jupiter and Pluto at 29 degrees of Sagittarius, right? We are in the last degrees of Sagittarius where these planets come in, and Sagittarius is the disclosure. It is the truth, right? And it's also happening in the 9th house, which is where the truth gets revealed and experienced, right? It's where we open up to, like, okay, yeah, we swallowed the red pill in the 8th house, and we went into the mystery, and we've like gone into the shadows, and then we go into the 9th house, which is where that truth gets to be disclosed and really embodied. And that's happening right now with Jupiter, the planet that expands, and Pluto, the planet that takes little things that we just kind of like brush off because they're so a part of who we are, because Pluto creates our long-term collective cycles. So it takes these like little things that we've just like tolerated and accepted, and it expands them and makes them big things. Right? So we have this massive expansion to all the corruption that has been happening, and the last bolt of truth coming through right now, so that we can then, as these planets move into Capricorn, actually move into the rebuild, which happens in Capricorn. Capricorn is where we rebuild. We build something new. We create something new. Our artistry comes online, and we build something new that is in alignment with the divine, because Capricorn is also the house of God. Right, the sign of God. And the 9th house is the space of illumined truth. So we're going to be rebuilding in alignment with the house of God, the illumined truth, a new world. Right? So that's really what we're seeing right now in the zodiac as well. We also, now, if we look at where the nodes are at this week too, right? So this is today's chart. The North Node is in the 2nd house of Gemini, and the South Node is in the 8th house of Sagittarius. Now, when the South Node is in the 8th house of Sagittarius, what we're seeing here is the 8th house at the beginning. So we're at the 7th degree. The beginning of the 8th house is where we're really in the darkness, right? We're really in the shadows. We're in the Scorpio. We're in the underworld. right? And that Sagittarius is, we're seeing here through this alignment that the truth has been held in the underworld. The truth has been kept in the darkness. And only those who have been brave enough to go into the underworld have been able to realize the truth up until this point. And now we have the North Node in Gemini in the second house, which means that truth, Gemini, the messenger, is now on the surface, the second house, the actual material plane of the earth. So the truth is now able to be brought up to the surface of the earth and communicated through Gemini, which is the messenger, delivers the messages. So we are literally seeing this written in the stars right now, this moment of disclosure, right? How we can all support ourselves. We see it like, this is why I love like really looking at all the different ways, right? We can look at the intelligence that is coming through these people who are the whistleblowers who are bringing out this information. We can look at it through those of us who are receiving this from our guides right now, receiving these messages from our guides, like prepare, get ready, this is what's happening, this timeline, 10 days, blah, 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 like all the things that you need to do to prepare. And we're going to talk about some of those things. Also, to then look at it from the zodiac, right? Because we can see it all written so perfectly as well. If we look at the truth of where these planets actually are and pull ourselves out of, I cannot recommend enough, we must collectively pull ourselves out of the tropical sidereal, which is 24 degrees out of alignment. It is the dark overlord's astrological system that was created during Babylonian times to keep humanity in control. So we are looking at it from the true aligned system. And we see then, so we saw it in the North Node, we see it here in Jupiter and Pluto. We also then see how we have Mercury in Aquarius in the 11th house, right here on the cusp of the 10th and the 11th house. Aquarius is the sovereignty. Through the messages that are being brought through right now, our collective will step into sovereignty and freedom. Right? So Mercury is the planet that's bringing through these messages right now as well to create sovereignty and freedom for humanitarian efforts, right? And we have the sun here in Pisces in the 11th house, right? So we are connected now. The energy, we'll say it this way, of the 11th house is about our community, our network, about us gathering and coming together. It is about 10, the number of God, whatever you want to call it, and 1, the number of man, coming together, right? Spirit and matter coming together in the 11th house to form our unity, to form our community. In Pisces, which is the depth of spirit, which is rooted in emotional awareness and intuitive insight and a spiritual nature. Right? So we're seeing that our community is being illumined by the sun through Pisces, right? Illumined to the truth. Pisces holds all aspects of the zodiac within it, right? So all truths being revealed right now through this Pisces, right? Can you just see, like, it's just so beautiful and amazing. I'm so happy that Facebook allows to do this screen sharing now so that I could just like actually point this out to you and you can see where it's happening in the zodiac. And then the last thing that I'm going to say here is the ascendant, like what is rising, right? What is rising for us? We have Taurus energy, which is earth, like really connecting us to the earth right now, really connecting us to abundance and the material plane and how we're going to move forward and create something new, because Aries is going to move in next. And Aries is going to be this breath of fire that kind of pushes us into new. And I just like pushing myself in my chair here. Pushing us into this new innovation, this new creation of what is to come. So it's very exciting times. I'm going to stop sharing the zodiac now and just go into what I've been receiving to support ourselves now during this time. And let's see, just want to be sure that we can navigate. All right, so we're back up. Okay, this is my first time doing screen share on Facebook Live. Okay, so during these times, when we're in the 3 days of mass arrest, right? This is a time for all of us light workers and all of us to be offline, to be in a meditative space and a connective space, and to be fully focused on love and the earth that is being born. If we all collectively really hold our energy that these arrests happen with ease and grace, that everything comes in and a new earth is going to be born after it. And we must hold and anchor our frequency in that energy. So it's a great time to be indoors, inside, right? Going inwards and really being in a mode of fasting, in a mode of taking in very little, right? Taking very little in from the environment, because after those 3 days, when these 8-hour documentaries come out, we're going to be consuming a lot of energy and a lot of information from the collective, because the collective's energy is going to go through major shifts as this disclosure takes place. So those of us who are, stewarding and anchoring the light at this time, light workers, we must be ready to consume a lot of energy and stabilize and hold that energy, because we're going to be really called to step into a greater role of service, which is why I put together that solution program to help light workers get their solutions up and ready and running to start offering to humanity, because this is what we're going into, right? So the 3 days of arrest, really take in as little energy, so little food, little information. Obviously the internet's going to likely be down during this time, potentially phones as well, and really be resting. If you like live in somewhere where there's nature and you can just go out into a park that's maybe your backyard or whatever, like do that. But otherwise stay inside and really stay in a reflective space. And then after those 3 days, we're going to go into holding and anchoring and stabling. So it's going to be very important. The internet might come back online, phones will likely come back, but the chances are they're going to be very slow, because everyone then is going to be getting all this information and then getting onto Google and starting to like look up all the information. And since the internet will have been reset, all of the information will be available. So people are going to be like going through in like rapid fire 10 days what a lot of us went through for the last 10 years, right? So it's going to be like broadband bandwidth, whatever it's called, is going to likely be slowed. So it might be challenging to have internet access and things like that for that short period of time as the disclosure takes place. And then the new system is going to come through. Now, something that I want to share for those who are aware of things like Nesara, and a message that I received yesterday in my body is that, and it was it actually confirmed something that Alex, my partner, had listened to before, and he will oftentimes ask me questions because he knows that I get very clear, very accurate answers when I am not blinded by perspective or facts or anything like that. So he'll often ask me questions without me having any previous awareness of anything that has been said, in a way that I just say, this is what I'm feeling, this is what I'm receiving. And then he tells me afterwards, like, why he was asking me the question. So he asked me the question yesterday: when you hear the word Nesara, what do you receive? And then he asked me, when you hear the word Gesara, what do you receive? And what I received was that Gesara was very light, and like lots of flowers were blooming, and new life was blooming, I saw, and like this lightness and this golden energy was just kind of flowing through this word Gesara. And with Nesara, there was nothing. It was a blankness. And then after that blankness passed, this weight just washed down my arms. This deep weight just washed down my arms, and a heaviness was felt. And so I shared that with Alex, and then we started to talk about it. He said, had you heard of Gesara before? I said, no, I've just seen people like write hashtag Gesara after Nesara. And what's happening right now is that the two are being aligned with each other, Nesara / Gesara. And a question that I've really been sitting with a lot recently, I asked Alex this a week ago. I was like, you know what? I just don't necessarily feel that Nesara is the answer, because why then would Bill Clinton have been one of the people who signed this bill intact when we know what his family is involved with, right? It just doesn't feel pure. It feels tainted. So Alex then shared with me that years prior, he received from this person who's very tapped in, that a lot of people will believe in the Nesara timeline, and what we really ultimately must do is wait to not go into that timeline. And a lot of people will choose to go into the Nesara timeline, but that is actually a last ditch effort of the overlords to take souls with it on their trajectory off planet. That if we wait, that Gesara will come through, and Gesara is not something that has been signed into existence. It is our natural abundance. It is our natural birthright to abundance. Whereas the Nesara is this like signed document that says that this is going to happen. And we're going to see that. We're going to see that timeline come about. It's already coming about. But if we wait, that there is going to be this opening of energy that comes right after, right? And that is going to be what ultimately actually births this kingdom of heaven, the new earth, fifth dimension, whatever you want to call it. That births that where we tap into our unlimited resources of abundance and truly into what's going to be available for us all in the new earth, for those that can be patient. And a big piece of this is not having any fear around money, because if there's fear around money, there's automatically going to be this like grab towards what Nesara will potentially offer people. And that fear, that survival instinct will come on, and we'll just say, oh yeah, let's just go there. But if we really just wait and we really stay in tune and use our discernment, then we might see that things aren't not actually what they appear on that timeline, and that there's another timeline that's emerging right just after it. That is the true divine heaven. So that's just something that I've been intuitively picking up on for a little while now. And yesterday, just everything just lined up very clearly in that. So I'm just sharing that for you to do your own tuning into that energy as well, and see what you feel. And I'd love for other people to, tune in and see what they also feel around, that whole ecosystem, right? So to just recap for those who are coming in, and I love you all, I appreciate you, and to just go into some of these questions here. Appreciate all of you who are also sharing this. So someone asked, is this information you're giving based on your intuition or written documents or heard from some people? So this information is coming from many sources. If you go back and watch, I mentioned in the beginning where this information is coming from. It is coming from the Guardian Alliance of Intelligence, who is on the inside of governments around the world, as well as inside of the Alliance military. So a little while back, our military broke in two, and part of the military went into the Alliance, and part of the military stayed in the Dark Overlord system. And the military that's working for the Alliance, like Navy SEALs, the Navy is very much in the process. And so some of these pieces of information came from intelligence whistleblowers. Then I got confirmation for some of these pieces from actually a client of mine whose family member is in the Navy, who sent them a random message saying April 1st to the 10th, like clicking me blackout, big changes. So then it's coming from insiders who are not publicly sharing this, but they are on the inside because they're a part of those associations who are sharing with their families. Then it came from as well people's guides. So then I started getting people messaging me from messages they were receiving from their guides before I posted the 1st to the 10th dates. So those messages came in before I posted the 1st to 10th dates, and we asked them questions like, are you looking into any of this information? Have you seen any of this? And the answer was no. So they aren't people that are like actively involved in this. They're just people that are very intuitive. So it's come from many different streams of resources. One of them is, David Wilcock, who's on here, because Trish shared that right above. So you can go watch his. He goes into 3 hours. Yes, there's a 5-hour one that goes in depth into a lot of this stuff as well. So it's coming from multiple different sources. And let's see who else. We have any other questions? And I love this. And this is going to be important. Robert says, I would typically call BS on lots of this type of info. However, my intuition here says it's truth. And that's one of the most important things, is that as this process goes through, as the disclosure of information gets pushed out into the collective, there's going to be a part of the mind that wants to shut down, and it's going to be this part of the mind that has been brainwashed, right? We have to rely on the natural intelligence of our body to respond. Our body to say, okay, no, this is truth. Listen to this a little bit longer. Listen to this a little bit longer. Listen to this a little bit longer. Like, put that aside. And we're going to go into a moment where we're going to go into a moment where we have a birthing of a lot of healing centers. And I was talking yesterday with two of our friends here in Asheville and my partner, and we were out on a waterfall and just tuning in, and we had this conversation about how we're gonna, like, in say 20-30 years into the future, where we have like all these children who are coming through and they're being educated outside of the system of control, because the schooling system is a part of the whole brainwashing process. And there's going to be like those people who were all brainwashed, which are us, all of us, myself included. We all went through the indoctrination of brainwash and mind control here on this planet. And then there's going to be like this human that never went through any of that, and it's going to be like this interesting dynamic of like sharing about these experiences. Though there's some screen happenings, though, from some messages that I've received from a collective of beings that I work with on that are from another planetary system. They have said that when the solar flash happens, because we're also going into a massive solar flash that's going to be happening anywhere between end of April, end of May, that essentially what that solar flash does is it actually just like cleanses the memory, and we might not even remember that any of this happened, that any of us ever suffered or ever lived in poverty, or there was ever homelessness or ever starvation. Like, when solar flashes like that happen, these solar starfire returns, everything just gets cleansed. So we might all just wake up and just be in this new world. And some of us will hold the memory. Guardians who are incarnate will hold the memory. They'll remember what happened, because they always continue to hold the memories and help to course correct things so that they don't fall down different path lines. And then there'll be those who have no recollection that it won't even be stored in their genome, and they'll just continue to move forward without suffering, without pain. So there's a lot of different things that we're going to be seeing happen. Right now, this disclosure is preparing us for the major happenings that are coming in May as well, these energetic pulse waves. And this is an incredible time. This is the moment that we have been waiting for. This is the moment that we have been preparing for. So whilst there are people who will be leaving this plane at this time, we must always never forget that death is not the end of energy. Death is the beginning of something new, right? And it is a moment of graduation from the earth plane. So holding that in our heart as changes happen on the earth and throughout our human species, and really staying true to what we see and what we know. And during this time, really going within for those first 3 days, staying fasting from energy, no consuming of anything, right? You can eat little bits here and there if your body's hungry. Your body might not be hungry. Then we're going to go into the disclosure period where the broadcasts are going to be coming through. And during that time, we'll be consuming a lot. So it'll be very important to be anchoring and grounding and stabilizing the frequencies for the planet. You know who you are when I'm saying this, right? You know how to do this. You've been doing this for a long time. And then once that ends, we're going to move into this massive creation phase, where we're going to see huge healing centers open up. We're going to walk into this world where a lot of people are going to need support and help and healing. And all of you who have amazing gifts and talents and resources, like, it's time for you to be preparing to put yourself out there, because people are going to need your support, just as we all needed support when we woke up to these truths on the path that we woke up to them. And that support came from, a trusted little ally who would show up here or there. And now it's going to come, and it's going to be the foundation of how we move forward as a planet and as a species. So very important times on Earth. Now, will it exactly happen on the 1st? It could happen today. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen on the 1st. A message I just received from my friend Casey, he was like, I actually feel the 1st would be very auspicious, because April Fool's Day is actually a very encoded energetic day. And it has actually been a day that has been used to keep people in the like corruption of information, right? By everyone going out and fibbing each other And like, oh, I fooled you, all these things, like lying and deceit is essentially what happens on that day. And we're actually going to have this massive disclosure take place on that day that changes and takes back that energy, which is why the first feels really aligned for the start. And obviously, like I said, many intelligence agents who have been whistleblowers and who are also not, who are just people who are in those roles, who are telling their families to be prepared. Right. So I personally told my family to be prepared. I messaged my dad and he was like wide open to this. And that is a really, 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 for me, that was like a very big yes moment. This is happening because he in the past has just laughed at me when I've told him about, reptilians and the cabal and the dark agenda and what's happening in the news, because I openly will tell him about it and he just kind of like laughs it off. And he was like, yeah, I actually think that that's probably going to happen. Should I buy a generator? Yada, yada, yada. And I was like, you probably don't need a generator. I don't think the electricity is going to go off. It's really just going to be media that is changed. So anyways, I'm going to wrap this up now because my body is ready to go out into the garden and to plant some new flowers and to help beautify this world and to see the new earth. And I really encourage you all to take these days and whenever it comes, just be ready and go within and stabilize and anchor it. And just the whole time, just be visualizing like, this is it. This is the new earth. It's being birthed, like it's being born. And all of us must stay true and focused on that. Okay. I love you all so, so much. I cannot wait to see you on the other side. If you need any support, reach out to me. If you want to join Solutions, which will launch after all of this takes place, because you're ready to put your program out there and your offering out there, send me a message. Any of it, any way I could support you. I love you all. So excited. I hope you have an amazing day. And if this message resonates with you, spread it. The more people that know what's happening, the more stabilized we will all be. So bye, everyone.